Rink Rats, what's going on? Hope you're all doing well. Welcome back. Season 8, Episode 5. We're going to talk about some unwatchable losses, people going on waivers, and the Hawks kind of stuck in neutral. And if you're following the Chicago sports scene right now, the Chicago professional sports scene, it is grim, folks. We were all talking the other day. Can't remember a time where teams were doing this poorly. However, Blackhawks are in rebuild mode. There are some good things going on there, and we want to talk about a lot of it. First, we want to give a shout out to all the guys. We've got 4 of us on tonight. Some of the golden smoothies. The Bard is here. Andrew Bardo, what's going on, buddy?
What's going on?
Awesome. And Sean Fitzgerald, he's well dressed, preparing for winter.
Yes,
as we can tell right now, he's all bundled up. I don't know what that. Oh, it's a Blackhawks hat.
It's
okay.
My dad got it for my birthday, and he asked if I could wear it on the pod. So,
excellent. Did it have this? Did it come with the spinning fan on top of it?
It did. Yeah, actually, it did.
It did. Okay, good. Got it.
Yeah.
All right,
and then
excellent.
my Blackhawks Operation Hat Trick hat in honor of Veterans, or a shirt in honor of Veterans Day.
So. I like that quite a bit. Good deal. And James O'Malley, Esquire. How you doing tonight, Jimmy? What's going on, man?
Like the Bears, I am giving up. But there's hope on the horizon, hopefully.
You're a Vikings fan. Who cares?
Yeah, that's why I get to make fun of you guys all the time.
Yeah, no, I've given up on the Chicago Bears. That's for sure.
I've given up in general.
Yeah, well, let's talk about, I guess, maybe the one Chicago sports team where you're like, okay, perhaps help is on the way. And that's our beloved Blackhawks. But it's still going to be a long year, folks. But on the topic of the Hawks, quick shout out to Jeremy Roenick, the often misunderstood, the often quoted, love him or hate him. He was elected to the Hockey Hall of Fame, or inducted last night. And his best years were as a Chicago Blackhawk. And if you were following the Blackhawks in the late 80s, early 90s, up until the summer of 96, where he was unceremoniously traded to the then Winnipeg Jets that were becoming the Phoenix Coyotes for Alexei Zhamnov. Y'all can remember that. Because Bill Wirtz did not want to pay him $4 million a year, which at the time was a decent amount of money. However, the Yotes were more than happy to pay Keith Tkachuk $6 million a year. And then Roenick joined him out there. At any rate, elected to the Hockey Hall of Fame. Congratulations, JR. Some good memories about him. Guys, any thoughts about him as a player when you were growing up watching the Hawks when JR was young and on the scene before we dive into some of our topics for the night? Bardo?
I mean, I loved watching him. I mean, when I was in New York, he was probably one of the biggest reasons why I became a Blackhawks fan. And, just seeing his combination of skill and physical play every game. I mean, he was awesome to watch. I mean, he was right there with one of the best as one of the best players. I mean, he wasn't obviously on Gretzky or Lemieux's level, but he was right there with other guys that you would see that got 100 points every year, LaFontaine, Turgeon, all those guys. But yeah, he was a lot of fun. He was a heart and soul guy, loved him.
Yeah. And I think is at a time when, Dennis Savard was, one of the most electrifying players in the Blackhawks organization. And so you got, he was known for his stick handling. Then you have Jeremy Roenick comes in known for his speed and then was an absolute missile.
Yeah.
It had no problems just running into guys. Jimmy, did you grow up watching JR at all? You might be too young for that.
No, I was -3 years old when he was traded away. So, no.
Gotcha. Yeah, all right, so that's all right. Well, let's shift a little bit then. I guess there are a lot. Erica Shelton, who writes for ESPN, wrote next year's class. There was a lot of talk during the Hall of Fame weekend on who would be in next year's class. And a lot of people were saying Duncan Keith is going to be a slam dunk next year. Do you agree with that, Jimmy?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, was a 2-time Norris winner, Conn Smythe Trophy winner. I don't know how many All-Star games. Heart of the defense of the best dynasty of the 21st century in hockey. I mean, it's easy to say Kane and Taves were the heart of that team, but you look me dead in the eye and you look at Duncan Keith getting his, mouth just absolutely destroyed by a puck against the Sharks, coming back and just toughing out not just the rest of that game, but the rest of the playoffs. And tell me that guy wasn't just the heart and soul and the toughness of the Chicago Blackhawks.
Yeah.
I mean, consistency was his game, and he was truly the best defenseman I've ever seen play hockey.
Yeah, he was like, I think particularly in that 2015 Stanley Cup run where he won the Conn Smythe. Shawnee, you remember all that? A lot of good emotions about Duncan Keith. Do you think he's a slam dunk next year?
I think he is, like based on everything Jimmy has said, but also something that happened today that may have an effect on it. Eddie Olczyk and Jerome McGinley were elected to the committee who selects people for the Hall of Fame today. And obviously, Eddie Olczyk he was in the building for the majority of Duncan Keith's playing career. So I think if people weren't swayed overall, I think Eddie Olczyk will be a voice they listen to in that room. As far as what you guys were saying, yeah, Duncan Keith, I think he is a Hall of Famer. That he played in those playoffs. I think it was when they rolled with just 4.5 defensemen.
3.5, I think it was.
Yeah, because Michael Roosevelt got in every so often. Otherwise, It was Johnny Oduya, Duncan Keith, Nicholas Hjalmarsson, and Brent Seabrook, and those were the guys. And Keith played, I think he averaged 30 minutes a night in that series. He scored the first goal of Game 6 in that final. And also, he was just, like, you knew what you were going to get from Duncan Keith. He was going to be on the ice for 27 minutes a night in the regular season, just skating. He wasn't a physical guy, but he had a great stick, and he used his speed, and he was always in position. And I think he was the perfect complement for Brent Seabrook, who, unfortunately, I don't think will be a Hall of Famer, but I think Duncan Keith will get in the Hall of Fame. And I believe, wasn't Keith part of the top 100 players of all time? So I think Keith gets in the Hall of Fame.
3-time Stanley Cup champion, 2-time Norris winner, 1-time Conn Smythe winner. I mean, that's a slam dunk. I mean, that's
and he has Olympic gold, right? I believe he has.
He does with Canada. Yeah. So
Yeah,
he's got an Olympic gold.
Slam dunk. Let's be real here.
Yeah. Well, good luck, Duncan Keith, next year. We're all hoping for that, and it should probably happen. So let's get into some of the topics tonight. Eric Andrews, unfortunately, unable to join us, but he is recommending popcorn for any of you listeners out there. Sean's about to get into the CHSN talk, everything that is going on with the Chicago Blackhawks and their television contract. And for those of you that have not been able to tune into the Blackhawks this year, you're not alone. There are a lot of people, and there were some developments today. I do agree also with Brennan that Eric is a slacker, and it's a shame that he's not here tonight. And I think he's avoiding any public scrutiny for any of his comments on the matter, and that's why he's not here. But with all that in mind, Sean, what's the latest? People are still not able to watch games. Why, and what's the development today?
So today's development, Jeff Agris of the Chicago Sun-Times put out an article that the CHSN will be launching their DTC direct-to-customer app in the next week or so, I believe, or this coming week, actually. And they delayed their launch of the app out of respect for other distributors like DirecTV, Comcast, and Fubo streaming services, which the current only legal options to watch the Blackhawks in the Chicagoland market are a digital antenna, which went out of style in 1980, Fubo TV, which is $79.99 a month, plus the $14.99 regional sports package fee on top of that, DirecTV, which is not a satellite dish anymore, it's more of a just direct to streaming service, and now their own app. And what Lawrence Holmes had tweeted, Lawrence Holmes of WSCR, The Score 670 in Chicago, had tweeted last week from some of his insiders, was that the Hawks are going to charge, or CHSN is going to charge $19.95 to watch one team and $29.95 to watch all three.
Now, how often for a year? How
a month? That is a
$19.95 a month to watch your own team.
Payment. It's similar to what Marquee has done in Chicago, and as Crane Kenny has said, the president of business operations for the Chicago Cubs, the windfall of that money hasn't really been realized. So, not only did Reinsdorf and Wirtz get out of a deal with NBC Sportsnet, which NBC Sportsnet Chicago was part of NBC Universal. They negotiated all the carriage fees. They only had a 25% stake. It was a sweetheart deal for these three teams that are on THSN. They decided to pull out, go with a company that Jeff from the Sun-Times is affectionately called Substandard Media, that has four TV stations under their purview. That's it. It's like the four of us running a TV station. It's idiotic. Now they're telling us not only do we have to pay $20 a month to watch one of these crappy teams, we have to pay $30 to watch a rebuilding team, a kind of rebuilding team, and the worst team in baseball on paper. So arrogance and greed is what caused this to happen. And unfortunately, Danny Wirtz, I think, gets some of the blame, but I'm going to keep the majority of the blame solely on Jerry Reinsdorf, because this reeks of his arrogance. He is the worst owner in Chicago sports. He has the lion's share of this network because he was a 50% owner of NBC Sportsnet Chicago before they got out of their contract. So obviously he's the one who's spearheading these negotiations with Comcast. They have asked fans to complain to Xfinity to get them on there. So fans are turned off by this. I've already seen from multiple people that we shouldn't be paying them money to watch these teams. They should be paying us. If you want to go the easy way and use the antenna, you can't replay, you cannot rewind, and the signal doesn't come in all the time. So that's where we're at. The lion's share of Blackhawks fans cannot watch their team on local television. You, Andy, as an out-of-market viewer, can watch games. I cannot via legal means. It's very frustrating. It reeks of arrogance and greed. And I honestly think that Blackhawks fans should stick it to the worst and not pay for this app. Because why? Why do we have to wait? We're already 20-some-odd games into the season. We still don't have the app. We still don't have the channel. And now Comcast is refunding Comcast Sportsnet or Comcast customers $8 and change per month, because if you paid for the regional sports package, which was $20 a month, you got Marquee, Comcast Sportsnet Chicago, and the Big Ten Network. And now we don't have one of those options. So they're starting to refund people. People in the industry, Jeff specifically, thinks that's an olive branch from Comcast and hoping to get the deal done. But I'm not holding my breath. This has been a complete debacle from the word jump. So there's my synopsis of this dumpster fire.
Well, if any of you could not hear Sean just now, but you can only see him, you may have noticed that wool hat came off very quickly as this topic began. Sean, how are you feeling right now, dude?
I'm okay.
Right.
I'm a little sweaty. But
take a water break. Plenty of time left on the show.
Turn the fan up.
Right, turn the fan up. But there you have it, folks. I mean, I don't really have anything to add. Anybody have anything to add to that, Jimmy? I mean, this is pretty bad. I mean, like, I mentioned the Chicago sports scene right now, professional sports scene, as far as on-field, on-court, and on-ice product is really poor. It's really bad. And there are diehards out there who can't watch their teams, who now are being asked to pay a premium. These are people that can't afford to go to games because they're priced out of games. And, it's really sad. I don't really know what else to say about it. Jimmy, anything on this?
Nothing really. I mean, like
pretty much said it all.
You pretty much said it all. And like you said, it's like this is the worst time because the product isn't good. It's a combination of bad timing and bad optics. It's like, man, I would pay for this if this was the 2010 Hawks. Yeah. I would pay for this if the 2005 White Sox or the mid-90s Bulls. But this is the worst time for all three of those franchises. Why would I pay to see this crap?
And the app is free, Sean?
No, the app is not free. It hasn't been launched yet, but it'll be $20. I think you could probably download the app, but you probably won't have any user access for it.
Okay. And will it work, or will it be like the preseason games where you went to the app and it wouldn't work?
I'm assuming it's not going to work because Reinsdorf is involved, and so he's going to have the cheapest people working on this app. So it all comes down to money, and the ownership got greedy, and now they're trying to extort more money from their fan base, and it's not working.
Wow.
And they're going to try to, I don't know if you guys saw this too, it's not related to CHSN, but they're eventually going to try to build up the area around the United Center, similar to what Ricketts did, to have their own like Wirtz Reinsdorfville over there to try to extract more money from fans. So just be prepared for that.
Be prepared for that. Okay.
Yeah, well, this is just a bigger picture kind of thing, because you're just going to see this continue with this regional cable model. Some are going to do it with conglomerates and multiple teams, and some are going to do it with just individual teams, depending on the size and scope of the team. But it's just constantly going to keep happening. We're going to be going through this in different markets all over again. And
I will say, if you for those readers out there of the Rink.com, I referenced in a prior article that Altitude TV out in Colorado. So if that is $20 a month, but you get 65 Denver Nuggets games and 65 Colorado Avalanche games, as well as high school games and other local teams on that app, because DirecTV did not want to carry those teams anymore. So they have a better, and it's available, I believe, in 7 states. Utah just got eliminated from the list, obviously, because they have their own team now. But there's nobody knows where CHSN is going to be available. So, for instance, if Eric Andrews wanted to pay for the app and he currently resides in Indiana, he can't. He's still in the viewing market. I don't know if he's going to be able to view games on an app or not. So there's a lot of unanswered questions.
Yeah.
A lot of fans are frustrated. Chuck Garfien of CHSN is going to have the president of the network on his podcast. I posed a question.
Good luck.
I said, why wasn't this worked out with Marquee beforehand? And when are we going to get games on? Or I'm sorry, why wasn't this worked out with Comcast beforehand? And when are we going to get games on Comcast? Because you're losing the lion's share of your viewing base.
Yeah. Well, there you have it, folks. Shawnee, great research on this, and obviously close to the situation just as a fan living in the region and not being able to watch your team. But yeah, so folks, DM Sean Fitzgerald if you have any questions about this. He has this thing pretty dialed in, which is good. So, but even if you're not able to watch Blackhawk games recently, even if you were able to turn it on, you would not be able to watch Andreas Athanasiou any longer. That much we know. Yesterday, A2, Athanasiou was placed on waivers, $4.1 million a year, placed on waivers. How long do you have to clear waivers? Is it 48 hours?
24.
He cleared today.
24. Okay, so he cleared today.
Yeah.
So he's headed to Rock Vegas. And can someone still claim him off of waivers, even out of Rockford, if someone really wanted to?
I don't believe so.
I don't
I
think
think
24-hour waiver period where someone could pick up his current contract.
Correct. That's that 24-hour period passed. So now it's an option of either he, I guess, gets outright released, which means the cap hit would go on the Hawks books, or they demote him, meaning the cap, which to Rockford. So the cap hit comes off. They still have to pay his salary, but he's now with Rock Vegas.
Yeah. So obviously,
his cap hit doesn't come off; it just gets reduced. So it goes
reduced.
From
reduced. I thought it comes off
to
completely.
3.1.
Oh, okay. I thought
he still gets his money, but the cap hit at the NHL level goes down.
Right. And for the Hawks, the cap hit going down really doesn't matter a whole lot unless they're planning on some sort of big splash that we don't know about.
No, right.
Which is probably not happening. Jimmy, what does this mean? Does this mean anything in terms of, movement, or if they're sending someone down to Rockford, does that mean more guys get to stay? I know that, Isaac Phillips has been around. Are they going to keep more D up there now, or what's your take?
I've heard a lot of talk about maybe this is making room for Nazar, but I don't see Nazar coming up this year. Maybe like this calendar year. I mean, 2024, probably later in the year.
Springtime,
I think this is more just getting him time on the ice. He had a pretty bad injury last year, and when discussing sending him down, Luke Richardson and Kyle Davison definitely mentioned him just not being 100% post-injury and putting him in a situation where the game is just slower, where he can basically just get his bearings back in the AHL. I don't see this as permanent based on these comments. It sounds like they just really want him to refine his game and just get back onto the ice in a way that allows him to just play past back to where he was before his injury.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of the image I'm getting. It sounds like they want him back. They want to see if he can be a fourth line plugger, but they just need to see him on the ice.
Yeah. Okay.
I've
also
read that it gives Nazar an opportunity, or Nazar, to play with a skilled offensive forward of NHL caliber down at Rockford, and that he's going to play on the same line as Nazar to kind of help his development too.
I hope so. I mean, that would be
ideal.
Pretty good. Yeah, I mean,
Nazar is already lighting it up. When we get to our Rockford segment, I'll definitely mention that. But a line of Athanasiou, Nazar, and Mayhew, that really should be incredible for a while.
Yeah, that should be. That's pretty special stuff. So I mean, I 30 years old. What's he have left on his contract? Is it just this year? Does he have another year on this? It's just this year. So this is probably, maybe this is just probably it. So I guess, I don't know. I don't really know what else to say about it other than, I mean, he's a fast player. He had a nice little stint there in Detroit. Are his best days behind him? Probably. I mean, good luck, A2. I'm sure he's a nice guy, but it's hard to envision a bright future with him in Chicago at this point in time, but we'll see. I want to touch base on this. This is starting to actually, it took people a little while to acknowledge. No one wanted to acknowledge that Connor Bedard is struggling a little bit. And, it's the can do no wrong generational talent that they drafted. He is only 19 years old, and in 16 games he has 13 points. For a 19-year-old, that's still pretty darn good on this roster. However, in August, if you were going to say 16 games in, what do you think of 3 goals? I would have a feeling most of us on this podcast would take the over on that one, or I certainly would have. Bardo, Connor Bedard recently, he's kind of a marked man.
Yep.
And he's had some games where it's been tough for him.
He's pressing. You could see it. He's getting a lot more frustrated. I don't want to go down the road and say that it's a sophomore slump. Maybe it is. But I think consistent line mates is going to be important. And remember, he's still trying to figure out how to play best with Teravainen. Things worked out well with him with Kurashev. I don't know if they reunite the two of them together, and see if they can sort of rework their magic. But yeah, I mean, it's. I don't want to say it's his development is sort of stunted for now, but it kind of is. I mean, let's be realistic.
Yeah, I mean, he doesn't have a ton of options of players to play with. I think that I don't know, and I'm speculating here. I mean, I do know the sport of hockey, but his release this year, I think, is not as much of a surprise when he gets off his shots to goaltenders as it was last year. He's still moving the puck well. The power play is deplorable. I don't necessarily think that it's him. Shawnee, what do you think of Bedard's performance to date? And do you have any concerns? And what are the options? Oh, yeah, go ahead, Bardo. Yeah.
Before you go, one more thing. One thing I don't want to hear, which pisses me off, and I think somebody tweeted this earlier today, I think it was, or yesterday, was, comparing him to Kane and comparing him to Taves. Well, guess what? They had each other. You can't compare them. And they were, a little bit more seasoned and a little older when they came up. But yeah, you can't compare it. It's
well, that roster had a lot better players.
That too. So,
their first year together, they were a game away from making the playoffs.
They had Marty.
They had each other. Like they had each other.
Right.
Yeah.
So, Shawnee, what do you think? What can be done about this, I guess? Or is it just one of those, he just needs to learn the hard way?
I think he just needs to learn the hard way, unfortunately, because last year he struggled a little bit, and then like his goals came in bunches. The dam kind of broke, and I think right now, like you said, Andy, people aren't fooled by the quick release in his shot anymore this season. He's been through the league, like the entire league now, so everybody knows. Nobody's scared of anybody else on this team. So he's going to face their best defensive pairs, like every time out. Like goalies are every time that he has the puck, the goalie's got to be hyper aware with what he's going to do, even more so now because he knows there's no other options. So I'm hoping this is just a slump that he's going through, and then he's going to bust through, and then there's going to be like the Hoover Dam's going to break, and then we're just going to get a barrage of goals.
It's no different.
I feel like
I was gonna say it's no different from when a phenom comes up, to bat, as in baseball, and hits the shit out of the league just to start their career, and then all of a sudden, they go once around the league, and then everyone's figured them out. So now it's like his turn; he's going to have to adjust.
Right.
Part of it is coaching. Part of it is him. So he's got to adjust. But again, he's also got sort of one hand tied behind his back because he's got nobody else to play with.
Well, there's that. Jimmy, I'm curious your thoughts on this. I agree with all that said. Is there any thought to possibly move him to the wing to give him less responsibility? He's got a lot to focus on. He's being a number one center at number 19 right now. You have to focus on so many different aspects of your game. It's not just the scoring, and he is a scorer. And at this age, is there any thought to the idea that maybe plopping him on the wing? Now, I mean, they don't really have a whole lot of centers. I mean, but if you put him on like Jason Dickinson's flank, for example, a guy who is always in the right position, always on the D side of the puck, and then Connor wouldn't have to worry about that stuff as much. Would that help, or are we just barking up the wrong tree here?
It would help in the short term, but in my opinion, it's just you want Connor Bedard as your long-term franchise center, and you're going to have to push him through growing pains. Maybe this is just my old school thinking. It's like, if you want this guy to be here forever starts now. He just has to get better as he goes through it. So yeah, I get the short-term appeal. Thanks, Jeff. I get the short-term appeal, but I kind of agree with Sean. You just got to wait for the dam to break. And he's already been through so many line changes this season already. Putting him on the wing is just another way to just scramble everything in a way that I just don't see any long-term benefit. Maybe short-term benefit. It'll get him a couple more shooting opportunities and better scoring chances. But this is the long-term 1C of this franchise. And you got to treat him like it. And there's going to be tough times. And this is one of them.
Yeah. No, I think that's all very fair. I mean, he's going to be a superstar. He is a superstar, actually. I mean, and
he still distributes well. He's got 10 assists. He's near a point per game.
He does have 10 assists. Yeah, he's there. What was that game in Anaheim? I mean, he had 3 dimes in that game. In a game,
he's still seeing the ice well.
2 or 3 games ago. Yeah, I think that people are, myself included, were really hoping that this year it was just going to be like this wow moment where he just totally breaks out. Mm-hmm. And I think we're forgetting how young he actually is. I mean, Jack Hughes' first 2 years in the NHL were really tough.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Really tough before he all of a sudden started booming. So
progress isn't linear.
Yeah.
No,
look at Nathan McKinnon too. There's an older example. He struggled at times.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's not perfect. It's not linear. If you freak out at struggles and try to find short-term solutions, you may be sacrificing long-term gain.
Yeah, no, I would agree. Good way to put it. That's awesome. Well, hopefully reinforcements are on the way. I mean, I don't know if the Blackhawks have the luxury of buying many more players. Maybe they can this summer, but I mean, they're going to need some NHL talent. But I don't think that Chicago's like a hotbed for people trying to win right now. So I think that's going to be a challenge for a little while. But in the event that help is on the way, let's take a look at Rockford. Jimmy, what's going on down there? We're reading some things, some people on Twitter disappointed in the latest outings from Korchinski and Levchinov. Why did we draft those guys? And then Nazar is really starting to take off. Talk to us. What's going on in Rockford these days?
The first thing I want to start with, and I wrote about this in the article, and it's a little dated, but it still holds true. At the time I wrote the article, they had only played 7 games. That was the lowest across the entire AHL. Yeah. Now they're up to 9. That is tied for fewest. They're one of only 2 teams in the single digits of games, them and the Chicago Wolves. So a little bit of me really sees these defensive struggles as these guys aren't having enough games. Like, half the rest of the league is up to 12. Calgary has 14 games. Hershey has 14 games. They have 9. They're just not seeing the ice. They're not facing competition. And we're like a month and a little bit through the season and only 9 games in like 5-6 weeks. It's starting to feel absurd. Hopefully, my strong belief is that the struggles we're seeing is just because they just aren't on the ice. But to get to the team more specifically, what we are seeing is just very top-heavy scoring with a lot of defensive struggles. So far, this team only has 26 goals in 9 games. That's a little bit less than 3 goals per game. And only 1 player has more than a point per game. And there are 2 forwards that obviously look great. Frank Nazar, obviously one of them. He leads the team in all scoring categories. He's last year's Connor Bedard of Rockford. He has 4 goals, 7 assists, 11 points. Like he's lighting it up. He looks like the guy that is going to be that second line center behind Connor Bedard. And hell, if Connor Bedard has to go to wing, this guy could be that first line center with Connor Bedard on the wing if things have to change. The other player, a player I really enjoy seeing, a guy I think is going to get a cup of coffee in the NHL this year, Colton Dock. 3 goals, 5 assists. He is on the second line right wing, and he is he goes left and right wing, but he is just tearing it up. I think, and that is the pleasure of watching both of these guys. They are just really scoring in bunches. The problem is no one else really is. 26 goals per season, less than 3 per game. That's really rough. Ironically, defensively, they're not horrendous. They've only given up 32 goals in the season. That's a little bit more than 3. But we're seeing a lot of growing pains, and I know what everyone, when they think growing pains and defensive struggle in Rockford, they're immediately thinking that play of Artem Levchinov. Very poor play. And a game where he had some very good plays, that play, I think, is etched into a lot of fans' minds as something to take away from it. And you know what? Yeah, we're going to see those kind of mistakes. And Korchinski has had those mistakes. Del Mastro has had those mistakes. A lot of these young guys really are making those boneheaded defensive mistakes that you really kind of expect out of 20-year-old, 19-year-old, 18-year-old. So my big takeaway following this team, A, they just haven't played enough games. They're just not getting a rhythm because the schedule hasn't given them a rhythm. Yeah. B, scoring is just in Nazar's hands and basically Doc's hands. Everyone else is kind of quiet. And defensively, it's not horrendous, but a lot of just young guy mistakes are being made. So the hope is you get more games under your belt. You start to have more than 1 game a week. And, the schedule will start to feed consistency, and that we'll start seeing consistency with more playing time.
What do you think on Comesso, Jimmy?
Oh, yeah.
I think back to Dana Gray's comments he had on our previous podcast. He's making the plays that you want to see, and he doesn't have a general weakness in this game. But like the defenseman, he's a young goalie. He will just make the mistakes that you just go, how the hell do you make that mistake? And I think this Rockford team is just a reminder of how differently forward development is compared to defensemen compared to goalies. You could really tell that the young forwards are just blazing it up while the young defensemen and goalies are just really finding their way. And that's just kind of how the development curve goes for these.
How the sport works. Yeah, right.
Oh, yeah. I always just emphasize with people when talking about the sport, the development curve of the different position groups is really wild. You can't look at a defensive 19-year-old defenseman and the 19-year-old forward in any way the same way.
Well, just to build on what you were saying about, Levshinov, I mean, the guy that Duncan Keith fella that we were talking about, who and the Hall of Fame in the same breath at the top of the program, he made some mistakes in the beginning too. So and I think he was older than what Levshinov is right now. So let's give the kid a break here. And like you said, the trajectory for defensemen is always, much. It takes longer. Somebody said, what is it, 180 to 200 games? Then you kind of reach that peak. I mean, look at guys like Dahlin, who was a number 1 overall pick with Buffalo. Everyone said he stunk. He pretty much went right to the NHL. Now he's a Norris candidate. Owen Power's another one. I mean, all these guys were just terrible. Not everyone's going to be Kel McCarr. So,
even Gustav Forsling. Remember how many organizations he washed out with before? Now he's a stud with Florida.
My God, yeah.
And like you said, it's just you can't look at a poor play in the kid's 6th professional game coming off of major foot surgery.
Why did we do this?
And think, oh my God, he's lazy. What I saw, and I think we all know the play I'm referencing, was a guy. You ever just make that mistake where as you're making the mistake, you go, oh, F, I just made a mistake. It very much looked like Artem made the mistake and went, oh, crap. And like his first instinct was to chase the puck and try to fix it. And then went, no, I got to go back, and got on his heels and just couldn't recover. So that kind of play will happen for very young defensemen who just don't have the instincts at the professional level quite yet, but it will be built into them with repetition and coaching.
Yep.
And I have no reason to believe that he can't put that play behind him, and the coach Sorensen is going to say, like, hey, you make that mistake, you got to keep your head up, you got to immediately back check and get ready, because they're going to turn around on you and try to get back. So don't dwell, don't try to make up your mistake by making another. Just get back on the defense and recover.
But I heard from some guy with 100 followers that Sorensen doesn't develop anyone but Vlasic, and he's a terrible coach, and we should fire him.
Oh, the season ticket holder that writes articles that no one reads? Yeah, congratulations, old man. Oh, sorry. Was that rude? I don't care.
No, that's fine. No, I agree. So, you can't be critical of a young kid that is and
we're talking about Sorensen's inability to develop players is wild.
Yeah.
Especially on the defensive end.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit more about Colton Dock, if you would. I mean, because when he came into the preseason this year, he looked like a different player. Just in general, even in the preseason games, he plays with an edge now. I mean, it really seemed like it was someone either told him or he said, all right, if I'm going to make it, I need to be tough as hell to play against. And
I mean, he's got 9 penalty minutes, if that tells you anything. He's averaging a penalty minute a night. I mean, he goes out there and he plays with an edge. Like, he's physically bigger. Yeah. And the nice thing is he got physically bigger without losing his speed and losing his edge. And that's something a lot of fans should really be hopeful about. I'm not going to say the easy comparison that everyone loves to say with a small, strong forward that can occasionally throw the body.
Tanner Caro.
Starts with A, last name S. We're not going to start the comparisons. But Colton Dock, he was a 3rd-round pick back in 2020, if I remember. It was 3rd or 2nd. I can't remember off the top of my head. But he's starting to figure out that, hey, this league requires size without sacrificing speed, and he's finding that healthy balance.
Got it. Awesome. Love hearing that. So lots of like in Rockford. I mean, it's going to get better.
Yeah, it's going to
get How's Landon Slaggert been playing down there?
Landon Slaggert, he's kind of bounced between the 1st and 2nd line. 5 points in 9 games. Not much else to say there. He doesn't shoot as often as some would like as a winger, but he plays a complete game. I think he's like I look at this roster and I think, wow, holy crap. A lot of first-year guys in Rockford. And he's just one of them, and he's going to find his way. But he's efficient. He's kind of like a lot of the young forwards. He's going to make the young guy mistakes, but not a unteachable mistake.
Journeyman aside, who do you think is the next one that gets called up?
I don't want to say Nazar, because I think they really want to give him a long stint on there. I really do think it's Del Mastro.
Mastro, yeah.
I think we've seen a little bit of him last year. There was some very positive things from last year, and I have a feeling they're going to swap out Allen and Del Mastro relatively soon, because I think they want to give both those guys time in the NHL and the AHL. They want to see which one just works for either. So if money's on the line and it's not Nazar, because although he's been very successful, they want to keep him down there for a little bit. I think it's Del Mastro.
I mean, Del Mastro was an all-star last year.
Oh yeah, he's good.
He's a good player. I mean, I'm wondering if there's any injury to TJ Brody, if it's automatic, or if TJ Brody needs a press box stint, which looks like he could, or a rocking chair, for that matter. Or,
Here, I got a question.
A nice book to read on a quiet night. I'm sorry, TJ Brody. Hasn't been the most impressive offseason signing, IMO, and certainly not in the eyes of Eric Andrews either. But
really fast to everyone, do you think Drew Commesso would benefit, or is going to benefit when Arvid Soderblom eventually goes down to Rockford? Because right now it's him and Mitchell Weeks, and they're both 22 years old. Do you think like maybe a veteran goaltender being down in Rockford, somebody who's had some now limited success in the NHL, helps him a little bit in his development?
I mean, that's fair to say. You look at, guys like Fitzgerald and Mayhew and Sanford. These are veterans just playing alongside these young players. And the goalie room doesn't really have that. They don't have that guy that's just kind of been there, that's kind of spent time in the NHL and the AHL. It's Mitchell Weeks who, it's 22, as you mentioned, and Commesso is 22. And both of those guys, I think, made their AHL debut last year. So this is kind of new to them. So I think Soderblom can definitely be that player, the Kevin Fitzgerald, the Gary Mayhew, and Sanford player of the goalie room.
Awesome. Well, good stuff, Jimmy. Good comments there, and a lot of good happenings in Rock Vegas, if you will.
Yeah.
So a couple more things to cover. What's that? Say that again.
I was going to say, just don't overreact. We're 9 games in, fewest in the entire AHL.
9 times.
9 times.
He is leading you down the primrose path,
So recently, finally, the CHL, the Canadian Junior Hockey League, and the NCAA struck a deal. So now players from Major Junior, from the WHL, from the Ontario Hockey League, from the OHL, as soon as their contracts and agreements are up with the team, depending on how they sign, when they sign, they are NCAA eligible. This is going to be big time. I just want to touch base on it briefly. We don't have to beat a dead horse, as we knew this was coming. But starting next year, these players will be eligible to play NCAA hockey. And actually, one Chicago Blackhawk prospect, Pridham, is that his last name? I think it's Pridham. Can't remember his first name off the top of my head. I could look it up real quick. My bad. Jack
Pridham.
Cool. Jack Pridham. Yeah, who's a BU commit, was in the BCHL, and he just left the BCHL to go to the Ontario Hockey League to get better development before going to BU. So very exciting news. Anyone have any thoughts on it? Bardo, any takes from you on this whole thing? I got a few more things to say about it, but want to open it up.
Yeah, I just think it's a continuation of what we're seeing in football and basketball with the NIL, and it's just, opening the door for more players to play, in the NCAA, and for the NCAA to get, more quality talent, and for teams to just load up. And look, there's only so many roster spots, so it's not like you have 100 roster spots like you do for like in football. There's only so many in hockey, so I think the pool of talent is going to be spread out a little bit more, which I think will be pretty good. So it might make hockey more competitive, from an NCAA standpoint.
A bigger field to choose from, that's for sure. I mean, I'm sure all these college hockey coaches now are fleeing to OHL and WHL games if they hadn't been already. What it sounds like, though, is that, like current OHL players, if they're in their first OHL year, like if you are a prospect and you're still in like your draft year this year, depending on how you sign with that OHL team, if you sign with like a 2 or a 3 year deal, you are still required to go back. I don't think you're allowed to break that contract. So there are OHL hockey players, like the ones that could go in the first round this year, that if they're drafted, but they're still under terms with the team for the following year, they can't just jump ship and all of a sudden go to BU or something like that. But where it could have been really important, and we've talked about this many a times, was in the development of Kevin Korchinski, who was in the WHL for a few years. And then, the Blackhawks felt a rush to sign him and keep him in the NHL, as opposed to him, if his agreement was up with the Seattle Thunderbirds in the WHL, if he was able to right now be a sophomore at University of Michigan. I think that still could be a good place for him to be. We've talked about it with Shane Wright. And so, I think this is going to make college hockey better. The other part of it, too, is the development path is that it sounds like they're going to start to allow NCAA players to attend NHL training camps of the teams that have the rights to them, which is huge. I think it would have been huge for Frank Nazar after he was drafted to be committed to going to Michigan, he did not sign with an OHL team. He was going to Michigan, but therefore was then ineligible in his draft year to attend rookie camp or attend Blackhawks training camp. Well, now there sounds like they're going to be able to work it out. Now, classes and things like that, so I don't know how that's going to work. But
yeah, they said academically they're going to have to figure that out. Also,
right.
I don't know if you said it or maybe I missed it. If you're signed under an NHL deal, you could not go from the OHL to the NCAA. So when Kevin Korchinski signed his deal, if this rule was in effect, he wouldn't be able to play college hockey. And anybody who plays in the CHL, they can't take more than their allotted dollar amount to live or whatever it is. If they do, then they're ineligible to go play college hockey too.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So it's basically it's for guys who have been drafted but haven't signed their NHL contracts, or guys who just age out of the OHL or the WHL and want to keep playing hockey, then go to BU or Michigan or Michigan State at 20, 21 years old and keep playing hockey and hopefully catch on with an AHL team or go to somebody's camp and get some playing time that way.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I still think that, that the NCAA path, I mean, obviously I've always been a college hockey guy, but I do think that, the NCAA path is still the best development program right now. Still the best way to develop for the pros.
Yeah.
If you're, going to be an NHL player. So, so good. I mean, really good news on that agreement. And, I also think that, the Blackhawks do have so many good prospects right now that are in the NCAA ranks, and they're getting really good coaching right now. I mean, Aiden Thompson right now, as of last week, which is the Blackhawks' third round pick, 90th overall in the 2022 draft. He's 22 years old, and he's a forward, and he's the highest scoring player in the country right now. And he's playing at Denver. He's playing at DU. He's playing for maybe the best coach in the country, whose name is eluding me right now, because I didn't do my homework ahead of time. But that is the best college hockey program in the country, and that guy's thriving in it. So that's a really good place for players to be.
Is that David, I don't know. Is it David Carl? Is that?
Yeah, it's David Carl. That's right.
Okay.
So I mean, that guy's won 2 of the last 3 NCAA championships, and is also the USA World Juniors reigning gold medal coach of Team USA, and he's in his 30s. And so, if you're at DU, you don't leave early. You're saying, "I'm playing for this guy. This guy's going to teach me plenty of stuff." So anyway, good news on the college hockey front. Around the NHL, Bardo, I wanted you to comment on the trade and what's going on in Pittsburgh real quick. So the Pittsburgh Penguins, Kyle Dubas made a statement saying everyone is available except Sidney Crosby following a 7-1 loss against the Dallas Stars where they gave up 5 first-period goals. And part of me wants to say, well, Kyle, why were you in such a hurry to get Carlson, and why is Matt Grzelcyk one of your number one defensemen right now, if you're so upset? But then his track record in Toronto for defensemen was just that, very, very poor. Trade for Lars Eller going back to Washington.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's I don't want to say it's a fire sale that's starting, but I mean, it's starting to look like that they may be heading down the rebuilding path. And look, give Crosby credit for being loyal and looking out for his family, and he doesn't have to buy a meal or a drink in Pittsburgh for the rest of his life. So give him credit for re-signing, knowing that this was potentially coming down the pike, because the core of this team is old. Malkin, Letang, and Crosby himself are all old. And now I think we're at the point where if other pieces are starting to get traded, he may look around and say, you know what? Maybe they're going to ask me, or vice versa. I should ask them to, try to, play the final year of my deal, with a team that potentially has a chance to get a cup, and maybe he can go out on top. So that's certainly possible, but I don't know if that's going to happen. I have not heard anything, but I also know that, he's very, very loyal. So,
well, when they traded Gensel last year, he was ticked off. I mean, he was mad when he thought that they had given up on the team too early.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Yeah. Look, I mean, think about what this team did. I mean, they won those cups early, and then they went like a decade and then won 2 more back to back with a lot of the same guys. And what they did so well was sort of rebuild the underbelly, if you will, underneath the core. And he's probably thinking, well, why can't we try to do that again and get creative? Well, now you have a different GM, a different vision, and all that. So, yeah, I mean, it's that's probably what he's thinking, and that's what he was looking for. But
also, Sidney's got to realize he's 37 years old.
Yeah,
like it's not like he's 32 and they're tearing it all down.
Yep.
He's 37.
Yeah.
So, and what Letang's 37 and Malkin's 38. So it's unfortunately, like, Father Time is undefeated.
Yes, sir.
And so, like, it all comes time for everybody to know when it's over. And Sidney and his guys, it might be over. To your point, Bardo, I don't know if he's going to leave. Like, I think he's just too loyal to Pittsburgh.
That's what I think too.
I think he's just gonna say he played for one team, retire a Penguin, and right off into the sunset. He's
won cups there. It's not.
Yeah.
He's not seeking a cup. I mean, obviously, I'm not saying nobody wants to win more than Sidney Crosby. I mean, the ultimate competitor.
Yeah.
I mean, that a generational hockey player, but it's one of those. If he was like a Ray Bourque scenario, where it's like, that he's not going to win here, and let's just get him to a place to win a cup.
Yeah,
that's one thing. But I also don't think that, like, I mean, if Sidney did all of a sudden say, you know what, I do want to chase one more, boy, would there be a lot of takers out there.
Mm-hmm.
That'd command quite the return, that's for sure.
And look, Pittsburgh, it's no secret that, I mean, they're toiling in mediocrity. I mean, their core is old. They don't have enough young talent to supplement it.
They're the Hawks. They're the Hawks of 2 years ago.
Yeah, they are. Exactly right. I mean, they're just mediocre. So it's like, at a certain point, what are you going to do? You gotta trade these pieces. And look, these pieces will have value to other teams, so they could certainly, accelerate that rebuild and start to get some picks out of this. So it's possible.
Yeah.
The problem is, and I'll say this, they only have what looks like $19 million in cap space going into next year. And you look at the talent they have to trade, it's not great. In terms of guys that are only in terms of guys only on 1 year left of their deal, Cody Glass, Anthony Beauvillier, Phil O'Connor.
Been there, done that.
Yeah.
Matt Nieto, Jesse Pugliarvi, Marcus Peterson, who probably will be the best player to trade, Matt Grzelcyk and Ryan Shea. Those guys on 1 year deals.
That's terrible. But then, Raquel and Rust, they don't help the Hawks.
And they're not. And Raquel and Rust, Raquel 31, Rust 32. They're signed through 2028.
Oh.
Both of them over $5 million per. I mean, they're like their four oldest, like their four biggest cap hits.
They're Tyler Bertuzzi's.
Yeah, their four oldest cap hits are 37 of the forward group, 37, 38, 32, and 31.
They're like defense. The New Orleans Saints of the NHL.
Yeah, and then you go to defense, it's worse. Age of the top two paid defensemen right now, Carlson, 34. Chris Letang, 37. Guess how long Letang is signed to? 2028. He's signed till 41 at $6.1 million.
Oh man!
I mean,
out.
Now how much? Kyle?
No, he's just not. He's going to go on LTIR.
How much of that did Kyle Dubas inherit, though?
All of
it. Start. Yeah. All of it.
I think the majority of it. I don't think he signed all these guys.
The Grizzly one is on him. I mean, that's.
I think it wasn't Ray Sheary or Ray Shiro. It was who was
Jim Rutherford?
I think it was Jim Rutherford. You're right.
No. You're thinking
Craig Patrick?
No, it's the former goalie, Ron Hextall.
Was Hextall their GM?
I think it was Ron Hextall.
I think it was Jim Rutherford.
Rutherford
was gone for a while.
Oh, you're right. It was Hextall.
Yeah, I knew it.
Oh,
dude,
Rutherford was before him.
Yeah,
Rutherford was before him.
It was Hextall? Was Hextall the one that brought in Carlson?
No, that was Dubas.
Oh my God! Okay, so Dubas, man, come on, buddy. Your track record for defensemen and who you bring in is just miserable.
Oh yeah,
look at what happened in Toronto.
You bring in the old washed-up defenseman, Mark Giordano.
Giordano, yeah.
And I mean, come on. I mean, Kyle Dubas. He'd take a lot of the blame.
Wait, breaking news.
Uh-oh.
Kyle Dubas just signed Dave Ellett. No, I'm just kidding.
Nice, Dave Ellett. Wow. A lot of our three listeners out there are going, who's Dave Ellett?
Exactly. Google him. Use the giggle it.
Yeah. Erik Karlsson, I mean, he will end up being a Hall of Famer and he will have the worst plus minus in Hall of Fame history. I think he's a career minus over 100.
Norris. He won the Norris. That's why we traded for him.
That's right.
My goodness, I can't believe he won the Norris.
Man, oh man. Just one last thought. Will there be any movement in Hawkland as far as trades you think before this spring? As far as, I mean, they are going to be sellers, I guess, at some point. They don't have a whole lot to sell. Taylor Hall looks a lot better. Mm-hmm. I don't know.
The blue line's still lurking now.
Yeah, Ryan Donato is
Trevor Zegras still in the NHL?
He's in a contract year. Yeah. But I mean, Ryan Donato, I think, would be a fourth liner on a competitor. He just would be. It's not like a knock on Ryan Donato. He's been great. But, I don't know how many people are going to give a lot to the Hawks for Ryan Donato. They might even want to think about re-signing him at this point.
I mean, is he an older Brandon Hagel that he could play up and down the lineup?
I don't know. I mean, he's only 28. I think he's in the second year of his contract with the Hawks. He's got 7 goals right now. If come the first week of March, he's got 15, 16, 17 goals.
Mm-hmm. Who replaces him, though? That's the thing.
Who replaces it? Well, at that point,
are you calling up the kids then, or are you?
Well, at that point, you could call up like a Landon Slaggert to replace him. You could give Nazar some time. I mean, at that point, you're eliminated, and you say, "Okay, kids, you've had a good run. Come up here for 9 or 10 games. Go back in Rockford and make a big run, for the Calder Cup, and then we'll give Joey Anderson the rest of your shifts." I don't know.
You will give him one last shift.
Yeah. Joey
Anderson. Calder trophy, or not Calder. What were they? Selke. That's right. Everybody's talking about him for the Selke 2 years ago. Last year it was Dickinson.
Yeah.
Oh,
any parting shots? What do you got, Sean?
Riley Stillman cleared waivers today.
Good for him.
Part of the Jason Dickinson trade with Vancouver. It gave him Riley Stillman, and we got a second-round pick. Still can't understand that one.
The only one who cared about Riley Stillman clearing waivers was Corey Stillman. So
I think Gate took a little pride in Riley Stillman getting waived.
Yeah.
We should have just got Stillman and then fleeced Vancouver a second time just for old time's sake.
Fun.
That went great.
Any other parting shots, fellas, as we move on in the evening tonight? Cool. Well, Hawk fans, we'll be back hopefully next week before Thanksgiving. The Hawks don't play again until Thursday, so a little time off. And now, I mean, the other thing too now is now the Hawks are going back out west again. Being in the Western Conference and in the Central time zone, and
A lot of late
pretty
nights.
tough.
A lot of late nights.
Yeah, those Eastern Conference teams, they got a pretty nice life with their travel schedule, that's for sure.
And didn't
more on that.
I was gonna say, didn't Rick Ball mention like in the game against Minnesota that Minnesota and Chicago are tied for like the least amount of home games on the season so far? They just don't play at home yet.
Yeah, I believe. I mean, Bedard
I
doesn't
don't know.
have a
The
goal.
majority of fans wouldn't be able to hear Rick Ball.
Yeah, there you go.
I had my ways.
Does Bedard? Oh, Bedard does have one goal at home. Okay, Gotcha. All right, folks. Well, good stuff tonight, fellas. Good to see you all, and we'll be back in touch next week. On behalf of the Bard, Jimmy O'Malley, and Sean Fitzgerald, who again, DM if you want to hear about the TV stuff, folks. He's got it locked in. Have a good night. Go Hawks, and better days ahead for Chicago sports. We'll see y'all later.